What we're going to do today is something a little different. I'm going to bring some people up. We're going to talk about consumerism as it relates to productivity. As you all know, it's all about the bottom line right now. I tell everybody in the world, none of this stuff matters except our bottom line. And we know what the last 5 years has done, at least for me, to my bottom line. It's been an incredibly tough role for us as ranchers and producers, and we want to be proud of our product. So Tatum did introduce Liz a little bit. I want to invite Mike Galloway up now, and Liz is here, and Brett Kenzy's going to visit with us. And then I'm not sure if we got Steve Drake on the Zoom. No, Steve Drake. So we're going to skip Steve. He was going to come. He is doing a video. I'm terrible about this. What was that video called, Brett? The cattleman video Steve Drake's doing? Ben Thomas, where are you at? What's that video called? The American Cattleman. And he has involved many RCAF members in this. And I'd like for you to go and look that up. You need to, if you feel led, to support that video. It's getting a lot of attention, and it's going to be for us. So with that being said, let me introduce the first person, Liz Marty May. Raise your hand. I don't know if they can tell who you are. Liz and her husband Avery are fourth generation producers. They live in Southwest South Dakota. They own and operate their ranch, and they also operate and own the Kyle grocery store. So Liz brings a very unique and diversified objectivity to this panel, and she has also served this state for 6 years in the state legislature. So please welcome Liz. She looks so nice today. And then we have a guy by the name of Mike Galloway. Now, Mike has formerly been a talk show radio TV, and he has a unique story in that he and his wife were not raised in production agriculture, although they did have ties to production agriculture, and under a various set of circumstances they returned to the family ranching operation, and his experience in the broadcasting industry gave him a great perspective on consumerism. And so he created a YouTube channel or a YouTube show called Our Wyoming Life, or is it My Wyoming Life? Our Wyoming Life. And so I've watched several episodes of that. Very, very interesting guy. Please give him a welcome. And then some of you may know Brett Kenzy. Brett brings a great perspective anywhere he goes. He's an experienced producer. They run a 3,000 head preconditioning yard, a cow-calf operation and farm. And Brett always has a lot of knowledge and wisdom that he brings to the table, and I just enjoy talking to him. So when Steve Drake didn't show up today, I said, let's get Brett on here. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk, I'm just going to set it off, and we're going to talk about consumerism and how it relates to productivity and producers and how we need to become more involved. And Tatum was talking about the video I did. I want to apologize for that. But it woke a lot of Americans up, and we were able to open up a lot of dialogue between the producer and the consumer in truth and transparency. I've come to learn that I'm very, very surprised at how little our consumers know about the way we produce. So with that being said, you guys are going to have to share those, Liz, and turn that on. What I did was I went out into the audience, excuse me, and I asked for people to give me some questions that they wanted to know. So what we're going to do is start that off, and I'm going to start with Liz. And Liz, before you do, if I missed anything about you, please tell us more. about you, your operation. And the main question I want to know is, with you having two views from the producer side and the consumer side, you see what comes in and goes out of your operations. How has the COVID changed anything, if at all? Just go up.
Well, that's a big question.
It is a big question.
So, as Shad said, we have a cow-calf operation. We have about 300 head of mama cows. And my husband and I have basically ranched our entire lives. About 20 years ago, I purchased the grocery store in Kyle. And it was amazing to my husband and I how different it was on that side. And of course, we're in South Dakota, but we're also on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And the people on the reservation are big meat eaters. Meat is their main source of protein, main source for just about everything. And when COVID hit, first was the toilet paper, of course. That was the craziest thing I ever saw in my life. I had people driving 100 miles trying to raid the grocery store for toilet paper. But then it got more serious as the COVID kept going on. And as a rule, I order between 2,000 and 2,500 pounds of fresh meat. We don't sell any frozen meat. Most consumers are not interested in frozen meat. They don't plan ahead. They want fresh meat. And so, like I said, we order between 2,000 and 2,500 pounds of fresh beef twice a week. Most of that comes in the form, we order all choice. Most of that comes in the form of chucks and arms, our shoulders, our sirloins. But a lot is the 80-20. 80-20 hamburger is the big seller. They want the little bit of fat. They're not into the lean. I've never been able to sell lean. And as a rule, a store usually marks their margins on meat. Of course, it's on the market, so we have to check markets. We do it on a Wednesday usually to adjust our margins. And the margins usually on 80-20 run around that 28% margin. Now, my husband and I, we do all the meat cutting. We don't have anybody, and my son, that cuts the meat. Now, if I had to pay somebody $20 an hour minimum to cut meat, then that margin would raise. But what we found out during COVID, first of all, I was having a hard time getting meat as it went on. But at one point, we were, as the owners of the store, paying almost $7 a pound for the 80-20. So we're in a depressed area, not a lot of money. And so we dropped that margin, kept dropping the margin until we had it down to about 11%. That is if we could actually get the product. So for about 6 weeks on that 2,000 to 2,500 pounds, they had us limited on what we could get. And for the most part, we would only get maybe 80 pounds twice a week.
Wow.
And so when you saw the pictures of the bare meat cases, that was reality. And the reality of it was we just flat couldn't get it. And my husband drove all over South Dakota, North Dakota, went into Minnesota, looking for somebody that could provide us with the meat that we needed. Of course, to no avail, everybody was booked up, all the local lockers, and then we run into the case that as a store owner, we are not allowed to sell meat by our local lockers. So I'm surrounded, I can look out all sides of the store and I can see cattle everywhere. But yet, I wasn't able to buy locally to sell in my store. So we started noticing when the meat did start coming in, the dates on the boxes and box beef, and I'm surprised that people don't really understand box beef. But I brought some examples here, and of course we get our meat from the Big Four. That's the only place we can get it from. And some of the package dates on that meat would be, this one in particular was May 19th, but we didn't receive it till 6/19. And we have never gotten frozen meat in there, but when some of that 80/20 was coming in, it was partially frozen. So I'm convinced that the packers had the meat, it was in the freezers, they were just driving the market. That's what we feel. So anyway, of course, now we're seeing it kind of ease up a little bit, but we checked this morning again because yesterday was our order day, and we had to adjust up again on the 80/20. So, and as far as the consumers, when our meat cases went empty, it was a good opportunity for myself and my husband, and most of the people that work for me are rancher wives, to explain how 4 major packers are controlling 85% of this market. And the consumers that I service were shocked. They were absolutely shocked. They could not believe that everywhere they drive, they see cattle, but yet I couldn't get meat in that store because I had to buy from 4 major packers. So as bad as COVID's been, and as hard as it's been, it's actually, I think, been a wake-up call for the consumers. And with that said, it is not just your meat that's being affected. I order 2 times a week prior COVID. Now it's 7 days a week because it's page after page after page of unavailable product. I don't care if it's milk, taco seasoning, cream of mushroom soup, any of it. It has all been very, very strained. And so I think we've had a unique opportunity as a store owner to really get the message out to consumers. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you, Liz. Let me break into this. We do have Steve Drake on. I want to get him on real quick to tell his story about what he's doing. Steve missed his flight at LAX yesterday and was not able to get one on. Steve, are you there? There you are. I see you now, Steve.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Steve, thanks for being with us. My name is Shad Sullivan, and we just wanted to get with you.
For whatever reason,
Go ahead. Uh-oh. Is it there? There we go. There we go, Steve.
Am I live now?
You're live now. You're live now.
Okay.
Steve,
Sorry.
I want you just to tell us your story about the video, a little bit about your background. You are what seems to be an incredible person to me. So I want you to tell the audience what you do and then go forward and tell us about your cattleman video.
Sure. Well, about a year or so ago, a group of my people who work for me, we do consulting work, both political and for businesses, found out about the issues that's going on with the American cattlemen. So we kind of reached out to some politicians to try to get them engaged. And when they didn't get as serious about it as we thought they should, we got engaged and started reaching out to politicians all across the country, business owners across the country. And we started up a Kickstarter campaign because we thought, how can we get this issue directly to the President of the United States? And one of the ways we thought we could was to start a grassroots campaign with the American people to tell them about the plight of the American cattlemen. So a documentary is what's transpired. In less than a week, we raised the money that we needed to do the documentary through Kickstarter. We're now just waiting to fly one gentleman into a studio to do an actual interview as if he is presenting the RCAF and the American Cattleman case directly to President Trump. I have confirmation that the president will see that first 20-minute of our documentary, which will be this gentleman presenting the American Cattleman's issue. My education basically came from my grandfather in farming, not just cattle and raising hogs and chickens for the Army, but then the United States Army, and I went on to get my master's degree from Cambridge University. Once I got engaged with this project, it's really, really hard to walk away from, because it's not just, in my opinion, just about the price of beef. It's about our freedom and liberties, and not just the way of life of the American cattleman, but for all American consumers, your choices, their choice and decisions being made at the supermarket are going to be made for them. And the politicians I've reached out to now are responding greatly. The state of Missouri has set aside $20 million to help increase small packers. I've formed a group of investment bankers in Missouri that are now trying to put together $1.9 million to build a packing plant in Missouri. Also to purchase a small packing plant to expand its production. We're going to use that as a model for other people all across the country. We've talked to some people in Mississippi, Kansas, Colorado, Arizona, and even California. So that's basically where we're at today. We've been pushing several politicians. We have had conference calls with up to 500 people on the call. The people are starting to understand the plight of the American cattleman.
Thank you, Steve. And with that being said, how did you come into contact or learn about RCAF USA? Did you already know, or how did that come about?
No, didn't know anything about RCAF. In fact, spoke to Mr. Bullard, look forward to meeting him in person. Spoke with him on the phone, but I had sent a couple people up through a campaign up, I believe it was in Omaha, where RCAF was having a meeting. And I sent them up to be my eyes and ears to learn about what was going on. They came back with this horror story, and that's when we basically got engaged. It was probably last October.
Yeah, and it's been really a successful deal. I know a lot of us have gotten involved in it, and I just want to take a minute to thank you for joining us. I know it's not easy to do that the way. I'm sorry you missed your flight yesterday, but with that, we'll let you go. I just wanted everybody to know, help them, tell them how they can get involved in your Kickstarter campaign real quick.
Yeah, well, basically what you could do is you could just go to the Kickstarter campaign's all been closed down. My company is called Genesis Strategies that we're working with. So you can reach out, Mike Schultz, Bill Bullard. There's a gentleman there by the name of Ben Thomas that's there. They all have my personal cell number. I have no problem giving it right now. It's area code 408-204-9098. You can reach out to me and give me a call or text me at any time. We are pushing very, very hard to get this documentary not only wrapped up, but it'll be delivered to the president's chief of staff and to Don Jr. And so it'll be exciting. And I hope this makes a big change for not just everybody who's watching this, but for the American consumer as well. And I apologize to everyone. I have an organization called We Are Soldiers, and I was in Compton, South LA, and my meeting lasted longer than anticipated, and I wasn't expecting the traffic to be as bad. And so I missed my flight, and there's not that many flights that get me into South Dakota. So I apologize, and I hope to see all you sometime soon.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, and thank you for your efforts. Expect some calls on that. I know a lot of people are excited and looking forward to this. One last question, what is your time frame on this project?
Well, we're hoping to fly the gentleman in probably by the 4th of September and having it in the president's hands by the 15th.
That's exciting news.
In the meantime, we're hoping to have closed a deal to set that example for everyone else how to expand these small processing plants so you can basically bypass in part what the big four is doing. And one last thing, if I take just a couple moments.
Yes.
We obviously have the cattlemen to supply the cattle to the processor. What we've done is gone out and landed the end user, some grocery store chains and restaurants in Missouri and in Kansas that'll buy the finished product. What we need now is the USDA and folks like that to get out of our way so we can process that beef from the cattleman there directly to the consumer. So any of you that are out there that are thinking about processing on your own, go get the end client first. I mean, we have 37 grocery stores owned by one gentleman who signed a letter of intent that as long as we can provide him with all the beef that he needs, he will buy all his beef from this co-op. Wow. And that's what we're doing. It's a co-op of people that I've assembled that share in the same beliefs as everybody I'm sure is watching this.
Yes, absolutely. It is about truth and transparency, liberty, freedom, and the opportunity to be a capitalistic nation. Thank you so much, Steve. We appreciate your time.
You bet. Thank you.
Have a good day, Steve. Well, let me move on to Mike Galloway. Mike, just tell us a little bit about how you came to be in this business, and it's an incredible story that I like to read about and listen to you because you have a cool voice, by the way.
Thank you very much.
And so just tell us a little.
So like Shad said, we didn't come from a ranching or farming background. My wife and I worked in radio, corporate radio, for years. You may remember me from GAC, Great American Country, was a TV station that I worked with down in Denver. I had a syndicated radio show at one point. I actually ended up as a vice president of Western Operations for a radio station out of Boston. My wife and I got married in 2008, and while my wife Erin was in college, her mom married Gilbert Odakoven, who was a rancher in northeast Wyoming. Gilbert had a heart attack in 2008, and so they called us and they said, "Hey, we have nobody to feed the cattle this winter." And Gilbert had a small operation. He had small by some standards, but he had a couple different ranches, 50 cows at one, 100 cows at the other. They were 30 miles apart. It was a giant pain. And so we said, you know what, we'll take a sabbatical from work. We'll come back for the winter and feed cows. So I didn't know anything about what I was doing. Gilbert had just had his heart attack, so I would get up every morning and I'd go to Gilbert and he'd be sitting in his chair and I'd say, "How many bales do I feed today?" And he'd look out the window and he'd go, "Well, feed 3. So I'd go feed 3 bales and I'd come home. And Erin and I had just gotten married. We got married in 2008. In June of 2008, we moved to the ranch in October of 2008. So we lived in our mother-in-law's basement as newlyweds, which was fun. So basically, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I would go out and feed the cows every single morning, and then I would come home and I would sit in the basement and I'd watch Netflix all day long. Well, eventually calving rolled around and Gilbert wasn't doing much better, and we were starting to calve, and I said, okay, well, you know, maybe I can help out here. We didn't have the money to go hire somebody. It was just kind of either we were going to do this or we weren't, or Gilbert was going to sell the cows. So I went and bought a book that was called Beef Cattle for Dummies, the Yellow for Dummies books. And I started learning everything that I could about cattle. And honestly, the guy who wrote the book now sends me a letter every once in a while and thanks me for increasing the sales of his book because I talk about it so much. But the whole thing was that we started down this path, and next thing you knew, we were calving, then we were haying, and then we were coming back into winter, and you know, we were just learning as we were going. And my wife was incredibly bored, out of her mind, and she didn't know what to do. So she was doing gardens, and she started taking excess to farmers markets. And if you know anything about Erin, or if you watch our channel at all, she took stuff to farmers markets for about a year. Just after that year, she was running the farmers markets. And so she did that for 10 years. And somewhere along the line, I decided, you know what, I'm going to make a video about how we produce. We decided at one point, after Gilbert passed away in 2012. So that was another turning point for us. We decided, hey, are we going to sell the whole place? Are we going to sell the ranch? What's going to happen? Of course, Gilbert had left everything to my mother-in-law. So we made the decision to sell the North Ranch, and she used that as a retirement. We decided to make a go of it on our South Ranch, which is a little bit over 5,000 acres. So we went out there and just went for it, and we decided to change things up a little bit. We started finishing our own cows, and so we would keep back 6 or 7 a year, and we'd finish them ourselves, and we'd sell them at farmers market. So I made a video at one point that was basically how we feed our cows. And coming from a consumer background, I kind of knew that nobody really knew how much a bale weighed or how much a cow ate or any of that kind of stuff. So I really kind of tried to make it, it was a theory they gave us in radio that was you dumb it down for the lowest common denominator. So if somebody has no idea what you're talking about, you can say this bale weighs as much as a VW bug, and we're going to feed 4 of these cows today. All of a sudden it starts clicking in people's minds. So I made this video, 4.5-minute long video, and I put it online. And the next morning we woke up and we had 1,500 subscribers to a channel and about 50,000 views that we didn't really anticipate on doing. And then the big thing was we were trying to market towards our local customers, and that didn't happen. None of these people were local. They were all over the world. So we thought, well, maybe we have a different way to go with this, and that could be that we could start educating the consumer about, you know, where your food comes from. And one of the ways that we did that was we just started pumping out videos. And I was doing videos about once a week just about what was going on the ranch. And eventually, you know, within that first year, we had 10,000 subscribers. By the end of the second year, we had 100,000. Now we're at about 160,000 subscribers that watch our videos every single week. And one of the things that we really wanted to do was put a face to your food. And one of the, even as a kid or as a consumer myself, nobody wants to look a cow in the eye while they eat a hamburger. Nobody wants to do that. So when we talked about putting a face to your food, we said it wasn't so much the cow's face, but it's the face of the producer, and it's the face of the family that's behind that producer. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to put a face to your food and be able to really kind of educate the consumer on what was going on. If they don't know where their food comes from, they don't care, and you have to just push that right in their face and show them. Some of the most popular videos we've done has been like the cost of ranching. We did a breakdown of how much it costs to keep a cow and how much we have to be able to sell calves for. And although I caught a little bit of slack from the industry itself on that because it was kind of like giving away the trade secrets to the, you know, to the outsiders, but at the same time, it really did open up a lot of eyes on what producers face and how hard it is to get that to the consumer. Since then, we've actually stopped doing farmers markets. We now have a store on the ranch. We finish anywhere between 95 to 100 animals a year that are sold directly through our farm store, directly to end consumer. We get it processed now at Sturgis because they're USDA inspected because we do ship. We sell beef jerky all over the U.S. It's easier to ship than a steak. But it's amazing that just making one silly little video trying to sell a T-bone in Gillette, Wyoming, turned into something that people all over the world watch every single week. And the people that follow us, they're from all over the place. One of my best friends that I met through the channel is a retired Chicago police officer, and he started watching the channel and he started caring about where his food came from. And I think at some point he said, you know, when I go to the grocery store, I look at it all differently now. And I think that's what we have to do with the consumer. We have to make them realize that this stuff isn't just magically showing up. There's families behind it, and there's kids, and there's grandma and grandpa, and everything else that's happening. And ranches are disappearing because, you know, sometimes consumers don't care. So unless we give them a reason to care, you know, there's nothing to it.
That's an incredible story. Let me ask you this question. This is a pretty good question. In your opinion, with your experience and background, what does the American consumer value in terms of the information that we put out? Do they, with the face to the consumer, the producer-consumer face, what do you think that they value most? Is country of origin labeling important to them? Is it not? Is it the price issue? Is it we're raised in the United States? What do you think that the most important part of that is?
Well, I think Liz hit the nail on the head when we talk about consumers, and they just don't know. So what our biggest mission has become is to educate people on the things that they don't know, and it's not their fault they don't know it. Right. It's not their fault they don't know what country of origin labeling is. It's not their fault that, you know, they don't know how the food chain works. It shows up at the grocery store, and that's all they care about. So for us, it's really just been about educating on what we can at that moment, and taking things like COVID, which brings all this stuff to the forefront. And this is like almost like a golden hour where you have to grab that bull by the horns and take it and run with it and use the momentum that we have going with the consumer to be able to continue to educate consumers as we go along. We actually started a deal where we invite people to come to the ranch, which is crazy. My wife thought I was nuts. But we invite people to come to the ranch. They stay on the ranch in their RVs. And every morning we do a tour. And I take them from bottle calves to now we raise hogs. So we go and we check out the pigs, and we go to chickens, and we go to meat chickens, and we go to laying hens and all this kind of stuff. And all this stuff that they've never seen before in their life, but it gives them a tangible, they feed a calf. And they know how that feels to care about a calf. It's amazing, but even in videos, when we lose calves, I lost a calf here not too long ago to bloat, and he was a 105-pound breech calf that we pulled, and he had trouble from the very, very beginning. But when that calf died, I got cards, I got flowers. I got all this stuff, and these people thought that I was just devastated, sitting at home crying, about this calf. And for a fact we're not, because you move on. But I even got an email this morning that was amazing, because in that video, which came out just a few days ago, I'm drinking a beer. And it was the end of the day, so I'm drinking a beer, and I got a really nice, really concerned letter from a little old lady who said, it's really sad that he died, but don't bury your troubles in the bottle. And I said, I haven't written back to her yet because I don't really know what to say, but I'm touched that she cares that much. But really, I was just having a beer at the end of the day, and I just happened to be videoing at that time. So You can make the consumer care, right? It's not hard. It's just figuring out what they want to care about.
Well, and I think that's a good lesson for us as producers. I'm what they call stalker trash. So I buy a lot of cattle at a very small weight. They're high risk, and go through the year with them. Well, sometimes I get a little hard. My heart gets a little hard. I get tired of the fight, and I think that's an important lesson that all of us producers need to take. Now let me go to Brett Kenzy. Brett, tell us a little bit about you and your operation, and I have a really, really interesting question here for you. Just tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Okay. I'm a last-minute fill-in on this panel, so cut me some slack.
You're keeping the chair warm, no, so that's all.
Yeah, I'm holding the chair down. Well, I'm from South Central South Dakota. I'd like to welcome all of you to South Dakota. I mean, it means so much to see you here because, if you want something you've never had, you've got to do something you've never done. And it's so great to see the new people, the new faces, to meet people that have been here for 3 years that you don't get a chance to talk to, but it fills you up and it makes you want to fight. My brother's here. We ranch in South Central South Dakota, 4th generation, and I don't know, we believe in what we do, and strong proponents of mandatory country of origin labeling. We want to check off that represents us. Okay, we're not against the idea of a check off, but we sure don't like the one we've got. And I guess this is a consumer panel, so what do we want to talk about with that?
Well, I want to ask you this question. This question came from southern Nebraska, and it says, what are some of the adversities or roadblocks that we are facing when sidestepping all of the middlemen connecting cattle producers directly to consumers? What are those roadblocks do you feel? Or maybe they're more on our end. Maybe you think they're more on the consumer side, but what are some of the roadblocks you see that we're not getting our message out to the consumer, and how can we do that better?
Well, I might get accused of putting a happy face on it, but we live in exciting times. And COVID's been a challenge, but I equate COVID to the first time that you reach in to grab a gallon of milk in the grocery store, and you grab the last one, and whoa, there's a guy on the other side, and it scares the crap out of you, right? Yeah. Because you didn't really think about it. Well, that's the American beef consumer. They never really thought about it until they reached in that shelf and it was empty. So, I mean, we have planted a seed of curiosity now. We didn't, but the circumstances that we find ourselves in. So the question is how are we going to answer these questions that are coming up? Because as far as I'm concerned, our checkoff's not going to do it. Our checkoff, all we hear from the powers that be is that nobody cares where their meat comes from, but they all want to know exactly where it comes from, the ranch, right? The 7-digit GPS coordinate where it was born and everything else. So, it's on us, especially in this room, and the people that are watching, and to answer these questions. We have common sense on our side. You know, we have generations of common sense and hard work, and God, we have such a great product and such great people. And so, as far as direct marketing, thanks, Karina, for this question. That's kind of, I think I'm sitting in for Karina Jones, right?
No.
No, okay. Well, anyway, she's somebody that when I say these are exciting times, it's because we've got people like this, that people that didn't know anything about it, who have used technology to teach everybody as they were learning. We have a grocery store rancher who is starting to tie some threads together and say, wait a minute, you know, I've been told this, and I guess I never had any reason not to believe it, but maybe I do. You've got Steve Drake doing this video to try and get our story out there. And I guess I'm not answering your question, I'm just blathering, but here's the challenge that I want to put on everybody. This next year needs to be the year of communication amongst us and out to the consumer. And you can see how this is blossoming, like with Our Wyoming Life, with Steve. I'm not saying it's good, but we all just take information in differently than we used to. And these phones, guys, I mean, they might be the end of us, but you can reach out, like with our country of origin labeling collaboration with the petition. Man, if we can get the right people tied together brainstorming, we can figure out a way to reach out to these consumers and to do it in a positive manner that builds up. And I'm really excited. I don't know, Shad.
Well, let me add to that, because last night, I actually remember last night, believe it or not.
Cut me some slack too, folks.
I talked to Dr. Taylor Haynes, and he doesn't know it, but I have great respect for him. I don't know him that well, but he's a man of vision, integrity, and honor. And we were talking about the state of our nation right now. We're fighting. Everywhere you go, we're fighting. We're scratching to stay alive. And Taylor said something last night that was pretty profound, and he says, we have to decide right now whose side we're on. Are we on the pro-America side, or are we going to go the other side? And that happens right now. We don't have any more time. And I think that's what technology has helped us, and we can use that to benefit our not, I don't like to call it an agenda, but I like to say our future, right? We've got these kids coming up we're worried about. We need to feed a nation. And overall, our nation is good. We just have some lost souls right now, or things that I think. So with that being said, I want to ask Mike. Why do I keep calling you Steve? Anyway, with that being said, and we look around the nation and we see what's happening with the BLM, the Antifa, all of this chaos. Is it important for these producers to tell our story in truth? And when I say in truth, that means with the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we know the circle of life can be ugly. Birth is ugly, death is ugly, and it all intertwines and is interwoven to make our life happen. Right. Tell us what you think there.
Well, it goes back to the first video that we ever put out when we put our bulls out. We made this long video about, we naturally service our cows. So we put the bulls out, bulls did what bulls do, and we made videos about it, and we put it on YouTube. That video went nuts for a weird reason. I'm telling you, people like to watch that kind of thing, and YouTube shut it down pretty darn quick. We had 800,000 some views on this video in like 3 days, and I was just like, why is this so, like, why are people watching this? And apparently there's some weird people out there. But YouTube shut that down. So the very next year we took and we went on a little bit of we did the same thing. We put the bulls out, but this time we did more of a parody thing, and we had, fireworks going off instead of bulls mounting cows, and trains driving through tunnels, and pump jacks going, and all that kind of thing. And we had that kind of stuff going on, and that went great. YouTube loved that. So it becomes how do you tell your story to the consumer without ticking off the powers that be, especially when you're using social media and that kind of thing. This year, to this point, we've had 18 million views on videos that we put out to today. And YouTube actually just recognized us as the YouTube's putting together this thing that's called the YouTube of America. And they picked one YouTube channel from each state to represent, and they picked us from Wyoming.
Awesome.
And so being able to do that and actually get that recognition, thank you very much. That's being able to figure out how to get it to the consumer and how to do it smartly, so that you don't get shut down by any type of censorship, which may happen. YouTube's a private company. They can come in and tell me, hey, we're taking that video down. Actually, our subscribers called it was Bull Penis Gate is what it was called for quite a while. And so that's a running joke. We have T-shirts now that have that on it. So if we can capitalize on what we can do and also be able to sidestep those that are trying to stop us from doing what we're trying to do, that's the important thing. Sometimes we have to play a little shuffle, but being able to tell our story and do it truthfully and not sugarcoat it. And I think that's one thing that our subscribers, our followers, our fans have found, is that I don't sugarcoat it. When I lose a calf, we're right there with it. I've done C-sections in the field where I've cut a cow in half trying to get a calf out. We didn't edit any of it. We gave it directly to them. This is how it is. This is what it's like out here. And as we do this, and either you're going to appreciate it or you're not. You're going to find your doorway in with those people who are already interested, who have that mentality, who want to know where their food comes from. Maybe they don't know they want to know, but once you start telling them, then they're like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that makes sense to me. One of the biggest things that I always do with anybody that I meet when we start talking about country of origin labeling is I say, that T-shirt you're wearing, it has a tag in it and says where that T-shirt is made. Why is that important? Why is that a law? And it's not that you don't have to know where your beef comes from. If you had a T-shirt sitting here that was made in China and you had a T-shirt sitting right next to it that was made in the USA, any one of us would pick up the one that has the Made in the USA sticker, I guarantee it. And if you pick up the Made in China one, I'm going to smack you upside the head. That's pretty much what's going to happen. And hopefully that Made in China one's not even sitting next to that one. That's what we want to see. So being truthful and being honest with what we do, I think that's what helped us succeed. There are other cattle ranchers on YouTube who decide to, maybe sugarcoat a little bit. Maybe they don't show their failures. And that's one thing that us coming from a consumer background or corporate background, when I came to the ranch, I've said if I started YouTube the minute that I got there, it would have been a comedy all the way through. We had no idea what we were doing. My wife and I, we chased around a cow for 20 minutes before we figured out that you can't stand in front of them, that kind of thing. So it's very much showing our failures has been pretty easy for me because I've been failing to success. And being able to show those failures as we get there has been easy for me. So I think that connects with consumers too, that we're not all out there roping and riding,
Tell real quick, most of us, I know I'm certainly not a diversified operation, but tell us how, your diversity has come to provide you income. I think these people would be, not that it's our business, but I think they would be interested in knowing how that works in your operation.
I'm really good at the side hustle. I'm doing everything but Uber at this point. And yeah, exactly. We're trying to get it all. We started out doing farmers markets, and that was because we knew that we have Aaron's mom living on the ranch, and we have our family living on the ranch, and we know that 150 cows are not going to pay for us to live. We can't do it. There's no way. So basically what we've had to do is diversify as we go. So we started out doing farmers markets, and then we introduced doing beef direct to consumer. Then we said, hey, you know what? We're doing beef. Why don't we try doing hogs? Never done hogs in my life. Let's try it out. They're hard to keep in a fence, but they taste really good. So we said, let's try that. We'll chase around hogs for a year, and we did that. Now we're on our 4th or 5th year of raising pigs, and we're doing 30 pigs a year that go directly to the end consumer. So it's for us being able to do that. We've of course went into YouTube. Now I do speaking events. I've got all kinds of consulting stuff going on. We work with pretty much anybody that wants to know where their food comes from, and we always have that core message. So if you're gonna, you can diversify and you can do 100 different things. You can be an Uber driver. Everybody that gets in your car, tell them about beef. Tell them where beef comes from. That's part of our diversification. Everything we do is to tell that same message. So whether it's farmers markets, selling stuff online, doing YouTube, we have a core message that we stick to, and that's where our home base is.
Excellent. Steve Drake, I want to go to you for a minute. I thought you were off. I apologize. I do have a question for you. Do you have a statement first?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I just wanted, listening to the cattlemen that are up there, I wanted to offer some words of encouragement to everybody sitting there in the audience. Stay together in this fight. One of the ways you get defeated is being split up into small little groups and kind of doing your own thing and not coming back together as a whole. You have a much louder voice when there's 400,000 to 2 or 3 million than if you're a group of 5 or 10 or 20. Now, having said that, the best way to get that 2 to 3 million is to each one of you that are in the audience form your own little circle of people that you can educate, because we've done 5 different focus groups and I've been called, well, pretty much everything, that I'm a liar, that our beef, the USDA beef, does not come from the United States. The head of the ag committees in Missouri didn't even know where Namibia was from. They had no clue that we were importing beef from Namibia, Africa, and bringing it in and having it stamped USDA. The consumers all around in California and Arizona, Kansas, and Missouri did not have a clue that the beef that they were buying was not from the United States. So my advice to everyone there, form your group of 10, 20, or 30. Educate them about the country of label origin, because they don't have a clue. The consumer doesn't know. Then keep those small groups into the bigger group so you have a voice that moves the politicians out of neutral and away from the paychecks that they're getting now or the donations that they're getting now, and that they have to listen to the voice of the people.
It's incredible that you just said that, because that was the question I was going to ask you. It came from Texas. How can we get the whole cattle industry to unite for change? And that is specific to the industry itself. But you did touch on that, and I appreciate that greatly. With that said, are you seeing in the consumer in your area or in your diversification, are you seeing the consumers having a change of mindset about not only beef, but their total food production or where it comes from at all?
Yeah, once they're educated, once they realize, like we just did a focus group in California a month ago, in California, Southern California, extremely liberal, and I'm not being political here, but they had no clue where their beef was from. Once they found out, they were angry. And I have found that across the country, that people are angry that they feel they're being lied to about where any of their food's coming from. And I think one of the panelists there made the statement that I think it was the woman that was there, and I'm sorry for not catching your name early
Liz.
on. But yeah, Liz, I apologize. But the statement I believe that she made was that the consumer is kind of shocked that their food is not coming from where they believed it was supposed to come from. And all of you in the audience can educate your groups and then get to your politicians. Don't let up on them. It's an election year. You got till November 3rd to keep pressure on them. They have to listen to you now and keep the pressure. So to answer your question directly, if we educate correctly, if everyone here, the gentleman that's doing his YouTubes, if he would constantly bring up country of label origin, the other gentleman who's filling in is probably taking my seat, and I'm sorry that you got filled in at the last minute. But if you could constantly tell everybody, if we just keep telling enough people and think of multi-level marketing, next thing you know, you get 20,000 people grows into 20 million. Now you got something to combat the people that are holding you down now. And that's what we have to do. We got to get bigger from the consumer side to change the narrative on the political side.
Okay, Steve, now Liz wants to piggyback off of that, so I'm going to let her take the floor.
So thanks for those comments. As a state legislator, there's 105 of us in South Dakota. And out of that 105, I think there was not over 6 of us that were actual producers. Actually had something, we made our living off of agriculture, okay? So they used to make fun of me because every time I'd stand up on the floor to give a speech, didn't matter if it was on whatever, it had nothing to do with agriculture. They'd make fun of me because the first thing I'd tell them, remember, South Dakota's #1 industry is agriculture. That's how I'd start every speech. And they would always remind me, somebody'd lean up from the front desk or the back desk, don't forget to tell everybody what the #1 industry is. And it got so it was kind of who I was. And so your legislators, South Dakota, we have more cattle in South Dakota than we have people, livestock. So our job is to educate everyone. And don't take for granted that the people that you send to your state legislature are going to be your voice. Because the majority of the people that are in politics are not, they've never been in this, they're not producers, they've never been, lots of them have never even been on a ranch, or in a feedlot, or any part of it. And so it is very important, like he said, we have to keep educating not just the consumers, but our elected officials about what in South Dakota and most of the other states here, the #1 industry, what is it? And if we lose that industry, what's going to replace it?
Liz, a real quick question, and Steve, this comes off to you too. I know people get tired of me preaching about the issues we face in our industry in America today, in the beef industry, are truly liberty issues. What Mr. Hunt talked about this morning, these are all liberty issues that are all interwoven into the fabric of our society. So with that said, the country of origin labeling rule, people don't understand, it's a freedom of choice issue. And all of us producers can argue it in a different way. But to the consumer, I think it's important that we say, okay, we need to have the freedom to choose. If they want beef from Namibia, fine, let them choose it. But that deception that is played in front of them is not what liberty and freedom is about. And one more question, we're running short on time. Liz, to you, because you're the female, and I'm not sexist, but I want to ask you, if you were in Atlanta or Washington, D.C. at the beef counter, and there was Molly Homemaker there saying, what do I do in front of this beef counter, what would you say?
For what she should buy?
In front of the beef counter.
In front of the beef counter. Well, prior, I'm kind of a jack of all trades. 30 years ago, I was an independent insurance adjuster to basically help out the ranch. I traveled all over the United States and was a property adjuster for, well, commercial and marina. And I did a lot of work down south and in Pennsylvania, which I could go into horror story after horror story about that. But what I found out, we're all pretty much the same. We really are. And this country was founded on agriculture. And it is still a very important part of the culture of the whole country. I don't care if you live in New York City. When I was in New York City, the same thing. I mean, you can see the pride in what the people are fixing on the street or what's going on in the restaurant and how they present the product. And so, you know, I guess I tell the same person in Atlanta the same thing I tell them in Kyle Grocery. This is the best cut of meat. This came from the United States of America. And this over here, this is from Namibia. It's cheaper, but you aren't going to like it. So, I mean, it's just a matter of education. And the one last thing I want to end on, in 2013, so everybody understands the struggles that we're having with this industry. It's not new to most of us. You know, I tell the younger guys, I had one get a little upset with me because I said it's getting a little bit exhausting. And no offense to you younger boys, but I have been listening to this same thing for 30 plus years, getting closer to 40. And when is everybody going to listen? I mean, the struggles we're having now are no different than we were having 40 years ago. But what is different now is there's so many other people. The federal government has got us into such a fix. We have the game fish and parks, the U.S. wildlife. I mean, it's just on and on and on, the bureaucracy. And as a state representative, you can't even imagine how big it is. Yeah. But in 2013, I brought it to the attention at South Dakota Stock Growers annual convention about what was being sent to every child in America every day, and it was the Scholastic News. And I brought my copy of it today. And in 2013, would you eat this? And it's a picture of bugs. And inside it talks about pass the bugs, please, and how it would save the environment if we quit eating beef. Now, I sit on the education committee in Pierre for 4 years. I had to get off. I couldn't take it anymore. But what is going on in our educational institutions is one of the biggest struggles that we're having with our industry, because people have gotten so removed from reality. Just like you were saying, you know, you can't give them reality because it offends them, or yeah, anyway, but
which is a whole nother panel situation, right? That we need to talk about some of the things coming against us. We're out of time, and the boss is sitting over here, and he'll kick my hiney. Steve Drake, we sure appreciate your efforts on behalf of the beef industry and RCAF USA. We look forward to working with you. Thank you for joining us today. Liz, thank you so much. I love your red coat. Mike, you bring something that's very strange and very cool to us, and we really have liked your story. It's incredible. It really is, especially to a guy like me. I'm a traditionalist, and so I've enjoyed getting to know your story. And Brett Kenzy, no harder worker for RCAF USA. We've got a great bunch of people working. Guys, give him a good hand. Go talk to him here in a little bit. Thank you very much.